Library of Heaven's Path. Chapter 19, Framing. After a violent thrashing, Zhang Xuan finally felt the rage in his heart subsiding slightly. Lowering his head to take a look, Yao Han's mask had already fallen off in the midst of the bashing and his face was warped from taking his hits. Probably, even his own mother would be unable to recognize him in his current state. Kang. Now that anger was no longer clouding his mind, Zhang Xuan immediately grasped his current situation. This fellow is the butler of Bio City Lord, as well as the uncle of my disciple. It is still okay for me to teach him a lesson, but I should not kill him by any means. No matter what, this fellow was still Zhao Ya's uncle Yao. If Zhang Xuan were to really kill him, wouldn't the disciple he just admitted go to waste? There would surely be zero possibility for reconciliation if that were to happen. Besides, Bio City was reputed as the third biggest city in Tianqian Kingdom. To be able to become the city lord of such a city, Zhao Ya's father should be rather powerful and holds great influence. If his butler was killed and he chose to pursue this matter, it might be possible for him to investigate onto himself. If so, he would be in deep trouble. Being a newcomer in this world, he had yet to create a firm foothold for him to stand on, so it was best for him to keep a low profile. I mustn't let me become suspicious of me. The thought flashed through his mind. Since Yao Han couldn't be killed, then Zhang Xuan have to let him go alive. For him to get beaten him in the midst of an assault against Zhang Xuan would definitely be the first person he would be suspicious of. Oh right, I have the perfect scapegoat for this. If he didn't come looking for trouble today, I wouldn't have thought of him. A person flashed through Zhang Xuan's mind. That person was the man who was beside Shen Bairu earlier today, the one who kept mocking him, Shang Bin. Anyway, that fellow was the grandson of Elder Shang Chen. If Zhang Xuan were to push the blame to him, Yao Han wouldn't dare to take revenge even if he wanted to. In fact, it would be better if Yao Han were to take revenge. The two of them would then bite viciously onto one another. At this point, Zhang Xuan stared at the distorted face of Yao Han and deepened his voice, I have a grudge with Zhang Xuan. Earlier today, he got on my nerves and so, I intended to teach him a lesson in the night. However, if he were to be castrated by you, she would definitely suspect that I am the one who did it and a misunderstanding would arise between us. Blame this all on the fact that you met me today, as well as your untimely arrival. Only now did Yao Han know why he was thrashed. He wanted to retort, but his mouth was swollen like a pair of sausages, making it impossible for him to talk. Scram. Seeing that the other party has comprehended his words, Zhang Xuan didn't continue speaking. He stood up and kicked Yao Han's body a dozen meters away. Damn it! Hurling vulgarities towards the other party in his mind, Yao Han knew that he was in a disadvantageous situation today. Gritting his teeth, he turned away and left. At the same time, he carved the two main characteristics of the attacker onto his mind. Firstly, the person who beat him up had an encounter with Zhang Xuan earlier in the day and was incensed by his words or actions. Secondly, the relationship between him and Zhang Xuan should be love rivals. The woman who they were pursuing had a Bai in her name. As long as he remembered these two distinctive features, it was an easy task for him to find out who the fellow who laid his hands on him was. Only after seeing Yao Han disappear into the distance did Zhang Xuan heave a sigh of relief. He patted away the dirt on his clothes and returned back to the dormitory. This event was a great fright to him. If he didn't stay up to cultivate tonight, it would be hard to tell what would have happened. However, at least the danger was averted temporarily. The key to survival in this world, power. Sitting on the bed in his dormitory, Zhang Xuan muttered to himself. If his cultivation didn't soar today, even if he knew Yao Han's weaknesses, he wouldn't have been a match for him. The one to suffer in the end would be him. Thus, the urgent matter at hand was for him to swiftly raise his strength. The stronger he was, the better it was. He slowly drifted into the world of dream with his mind filled with sentimentality. The next day, Zhang Xuan woke up the moment the sky lit up. Although he had barely slept for 2 hours, not to mention how hard he had worked the previous night, he still felt refreshed without the slightest fatigue. Time to start lessons, he muttered as he put on his clothes. After which, he walked to his classroom with large strides. It didn't take long for him to arrive at his classroom. The moment he pushed the door open, a plump youth welcomed him enthusiastically. "Zhang Lishi, you are here. Look, I have already finished cleaning up the room." He was the final student Zhang Xuan accepted yesterday, the fatty Yuan Tao. Zhang Xuan didn't expect that this fellow would be the first to arrive, given how he threatened him yesterday. Furthermore, he even cleaned the classroom spick and span. Not bad. Zhang Xuan nodded his head in approval. He, since teacher said that I did not bad, is there any reward for my effort? Like some martial art or cultivation technique and such? You can casually reward me with 3 or 5 of them. Hearing Zhang Xuan's acknowledgement, a wide smile appeared on Fatty's face. This fellow was the type who would go too far when you give him some leeway. Wait by the side first. I will start the lesson after the other students arrive. Zhang Xuan gestured. The first to arrive was Fatty. Unexpectedly, the second to arrive was the student whom he won from the bet, Lu Yang. However, Lu Yang's attitude wasn't as good as Fatty's. Indignation spelled on his face as he gazed at Zhang Xuan with a look of contempt. In his opinion, Zhang Xuan only won the bet by luck, and it was a torture for a genius like him to come under the tutelage of a teacher of such horrendous standards. The third to arrive was the youth who specializes in the way of the spear, Zhen Yang. After Zhang Xuan pointed out the problem in Zhen Yang's spear, his strength rose by more than a single fold. As a result, Zhen Yang held great confidence towards his teacher, and out of the current few students who acknowledged Zhang Xuan, he was the only one who came to him on his own free will. The fourth to arrive was Wang Ying. The shy lass couldn't help but blush upon catching sight of the other students when she entered and immediately hid at the corner. I should be able to solve the problem of my body today. Zhao Ya opened her eyes. Yesterday, the academy's worst teacher claimed that he was capable of solving her problem. After returning to her dormitory, she felt lost and worried, causing her to roll about her bed, only falling asleep after a long time later. Regardless of whether the other party is telling the truth or lying, there would surely be a conclusion by the end of today. When such thoughts struck her, she gargled her mouth, put on her clothes and left the room swiftly. As the daughter of Bio City Lord and one of the top 10 scorers of the entrance examinations, she was granted a personal residence, unlike the shared dormitory of the other students. There were many rooms in the residence, and the butler, Uncle Yao, stayed in one of the rooms not too far away from hers. "Uncle Yao, I'm going to class." Seeing no movements in the room after shouting, Zhao Ya prepared to walk off. "Young mistress, wait for me. I will go with you." A shout echoed from beyond the door. The door opened and Yao Han walked out. Looking at his face, Zhao Ya was taken aback. "Uncle Yao, you. What happened?" Zhao Ya was stunned to see Yao Han's swollen face and the dark rings around his eyes. In a single night, the dignified Yao Han had been disfigured. If it wasn't for the familiar voice, she wouldn't have known who he was. "Oh, I accidentally hit myself after getting too absorbed in my training yesterday," Yao Han explained. Who would hit themselves in the midst of their training? Is it possible for anyone to find an even worse excuse than that? "Uncle Yao, what happened? Who did it?" "No, I have to tell my dad," Zhao Ya exclaimed furiously. "Young mistress, don't bother yourself with this. This is my own problem. I can resolve it myself. You better hurry to your class first. I want to see how the teacher you acknowledged is like. If his standards are exactly like what the rumors dictate, I will immediately report this to the city lord and have the Hongtian Academy get a new teacher for you. Yao Han waved his hand imposingly. However, as his movements were too big, his wounds were pulled on and cold sweat drenches his back. Fine. Seeing how adamant Yao Han was against her interference in the matter, Zhao Ya didn't touch any further on the subject. The two of them walked towards Zhang Xian's classroom. Uncle Yao, given how severely wounded you are, I think you should go back and rest first. I can attend the lesson by myself, there is no need for you to send me. After walking a short distance, Zhao Ya noticed how his entire body was trembling and drenched in sweat. She couldn't help but say these words. Yesterday, Zhang Xian didn't pull back his blows even in the least. Despite applying medicine on the wounds and resting for a few hours, his wounds were still severe. It was quite incredible that he was even able to walk. Young mistress, the city lord has tasked me to find a good teacher for you before we set off. Yet, you had to choose such a fellow. How can I face the city lord in the future? Yao Han said. No matter what, I want to expose the true face of that fellow before you and prove to you that he is a fraud. Only our pure and innocent young mistress would fall for his tricks. Given those standards of his, it is impossible for him to recruit a second student. When you finally witness that there are no other students in his class, you would know that. GIAAA. The door to the classroom was pushed open, revealing its interior. Within the classroom sat Zhang Xian and his 4 new students.